Hello, coffee makers, not coffee takers. I am the master of cyber crimes, Alfredzo B, Nash Jr., one half of the Cyber Coffee Hour podcast. The People's Chief, Dr. Joseph J. Burt-Miller, and I are your hosts and products of Mount Vernon, New York. We share with you our experiences in the field and the experience and stories of our amazing guests to ultimately elevate, share, and decipher on the knowledge in which we understand and foster within this wonderful cyberspace. Sorry. For today's episode, it's just me, the master of cyber farms. Today, I'm going to review an article from CyberScoop, and I'm going to cross chat and examine that article to my recent interest and ongoing interest within the food and agriculture ISAC. So stay tuned with me. I need to take a moment, because considering I am a follower of another YouTuber by the name of Canadian Prepper, I'm going to try not to sound like Mr. Doom and Gloom himself on the Cyber Coffee Hour podcast. I'm going to really try to avoid ranting and still perform a deeper analysis of this article that we're going to jump into. More so than normal too, because I went to the lengths of researching on this article and I'll include all of it in the show notes. I'm just a little alarmed that, this is the first time I've actually done an episode on something I care about in the food and agriculture sector. So I'm going to try to stick it out. So let's jump into it, all right? So according to this CyberScoop article titled, House Republicans Sounds the Alarms on Threats to the Food and Agriculture Sector, Minnesota agriculture lacks direction when it comes to protecting the food supply chain from hackers. Pause for dramatic effect. As the top voice of House Committee on Agriculture, Republican Brad Finstad warns of increased cyber threats due to increased resilience on emerging technologies and the lack of direction from Minnesota Department of Agriculture overseeing the food and agriculture sector. According to Brad Finstad, a farmer, mind you, this is a representative that is a farmer in the area of Minnesota. He noted that people may not be aware of increasingly digital landscape that encompasses emerging technologies. So let's pause even more further right there, right? I'm aware of the emerging technologies, and I've only been doing this part-time. Some of those emerging technologies can include global information systems, positioning systems, cool robots that kill weeds, right, with lasers. Legitimately, no jokes there, but there is a robot out there that kills weeds using a laser and autonomous design and GIS, right? So we're going to come back to that. Satellite imagery, also backed by that same technology. Plot and place systems, also backed in that farmland, right? They place in water and figure out where certain crops belong in the treatment that they need. And then the farmer himself. The farmer is a rolling tactician or engineer of the farmland, of this digital landscape. They know plant disease. They know the nutrient management, soil management, water cycles, and all the things that they're crunching to ensure that their farm doesn't fail, right? So right there, Mr. Finstad, I'm right there tracking with you. But the oversight from these groups, according to the article, attacks on the food and agriculture sector do not have the same attention as other critical infrastructures. Ding, ding, ding. I hear it. I hear it time and time again. The two sectors that are my favorite, and I've talked with Dr. Joseph about it as well, are electrical and water, right? So this article continues, including Rep Finstad's findings referencing the 2021 ransomware attack against JBS. JBS is one of the largest meat suppliers in the world, disrupting their operations and also leading to the organization paying $11 million to prevent hackers from stealing their data. So I'm going to squeeze a mention into another brother podcast, right? The Other Side of the Firewall, shout out to y'all, Shannon and Ryan. They knocked out the part covering pretty much where the EPA had 70 to 76% of water systems compromised or shown to have threats. And in their observations, it's very difficult not to rant. So I'll include a note to their episode and you'll link it up with this one just to get out there in the metaverse. But let's stop the louder bus even further. We're at the stop here now where if you're telling me as the master of cyber farms, we have a confirmed ransomware attack against JBS in the food sector. Other side of the firewall covered EPA findings against 70% of the water systems. I'm really trying not to rant. I'll take a moment, right? And let's load up the bases in this cyber defense ballgame for a second. A few months ago, just only maybe 2-3 months ago, a Belgian beer brand named Duvel was also hit by the Stormish ransomware gang. Now, this gang claimed to have stolen roughly 88 gigs of their data attached to the brewery systems. That'll be in the show notes. The same brewery also confirmed that inside of the scope of this ransomware attack was included, a coffee roastery named Coffee Buyers. Coffee Buyers is the largest coffee roaster in Belgium, responsible for 200 employees, and this attack is still under investigation. For me, right? Don't mess with the coffee. Stop messing with the coffee. The whole sector has been uncovered and discovered in this episode. We could get back to the article in a second here, but the bases are loaded, right? In the same cyber defense ball game, there's only a few sectors remaining: auto, transportation, human and health services. Those sectors in human and health services include places of worship, education institutions, or other facilities I deem, the master of cyber farms, shelter within the cybersecurity industry. Food, water, shelter, cybersecurity. I've said it on other episodes before, but we're going to close the gap on food and water, right? All we need is better protection and legislations against all three to show folks, hey, let's stop playing around, right? Let's stop playing this game where it's just the threats, it's just the threat intel, and not the legislation and provisions to protect the entire sector. We need both. You can't have us out here not doing it one without the other. And more importantly, I'm gonna calm down for a second. We could continue this discussion in additional coffee chats if you want. So I'll look at the comments. I'll be out here. I'm invested in this topic. But in order to bring myself down a little bit, I want to hear from the guests. Is this something that's concerned, or excuse me, the coffee makers that listen to our show? Is this a concern? Is this something you want to hear more about? I'll finish it off in this episode as well with the same CyberScoop article. The second part of this analysis, diving deeper, is Rhett Finstad, shout out to him, again, has justified legislation and protections for something called the Food and Cybersecurity Act. It aims to identify vulnerabilities in the food and agriculture sector through an annual cross-sector exercising, simulating cyber disruption and attack, and regular threat assessments against the food and agriculture sector. Ding, 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 sign me up. All right. I really wanted to get into that because, and I know I was going on a little bit of tangent, but I'm going to also tie it to what we just saw in the EPA vulnerable systems, right? Cross-sector exercises are immensely needed. They're immensely needed like years ago for sake of argument. The same legislation is highlighted in the safe drinking water cybersecurity provisions. Those provisions are also aligned to CISA's cross-sector performance goals. I'll include notes for that. In addition, right, I recently attended webinars for both. The EPA guidance, they come across performance goals and baselines for the water sector. Shout out to the other side of the firewall. Now on the food and beverage side, the food and beverage side has an ISAC. The ISAC just covered food and agriculture. They just covered a recent webinar identifying the same baselines and alignment to CISA. What's missing, in my professional opinion, right, is the alignment that encompasses the farmer, farmland, farm and table subsidiaries, as well as legislation that covers the beverage side, where the coffee resides. The beverage side, for me, seems to be a known gap that I didn't hear yet, and I'll cover it on the Cyber Coffee Hour, wherever we need to be. Those subsectors are going to need to be associated with the same cross-sector assessments. That's, again, beverage, dairy, grain, and all the subsidiaries in food, beverage, and agriculture aligned to these cybersecurity performance goals. Now, that's it for that article, by the way. We have only come to see this legislation just recently in the coverage by a gentleman named Christian Vasquez over at CyberScoop. I reached out to him. Hey, Christian, I want to highlight you, man. Let's talk about this. Let's get you on the show. I really think as the master of cyber farms, we need to remain vigilant in these type of remediation guidelines, especially as a cybersecurity professional, right? We can no longer resist the urge to research these matters and align ourselves to some of these goals on both sides of the fence. The food, beverage, and agriculture sector overlaps multiple sectors. If we're not sharing the intelligence inside of the ISAC and finding those subsidiary and organizations that want to hear from us, right? They want to hear from cybersecurity professionals. We need to be attuned to the legislation and acts that protect these sectors. This is my recommendation. So yeah, for that's it. I just wanted to cover that article. It'll be in the show notes. You guys let me know what you think, coffee makers. Stay tuned, stay subscribed on all platforms, YouTube, Spotify, and LinkedIn. We're out there. And I want to hear from you in the near future. See ya. Thank you.